Successful people in life never got to where they wanted to be by allowing themselves to be pushed around and intimidated and bullied by others. Now, success can be defined in many different ways, but I think for the average truck driver, success boils down to having a job that you like, good pay, time off with the family, and just enough of a work-life balance that everything's enjoyable. But big corporate trucking does not want that for truck drivers. Big corporate trucking sees truck drivers as a tool to be utilized to its fullest extent, an asset to be wrung out as much as it possibly can be for profit. So there's a conflict there between what the big corporate carrier wants and what the truck driver wants. Great Lakes Cold Logistics is now an employee-owned company, and that is a big, big deal because that means the drivers for Great Lakes share in the company profits as well as making money on their mileage runs. And some of those mileage runs now for experienced guys are up to 70 cents a mile. So those guys are making big money down there, serious business. Check them out at drivegreatlakes.com. More than ever these days, you're seeing these great big corporate carriers advertise that they're just one big happy family over there. It's a great family atmosphere, a great place to work. And it doesn't matter how huge these carriers are, they're all saying it these days. But tens of thousands of drivers are finding out that these great big corporate carriers talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. It's nowhere near a big happy family. And that's why the turnover rate of these great big carriers is 90% or better. Big corporate trucking is a dog-eat-dog world. It's a dirty business. They steal customers from one another. They steal drivers from one another. But probably one of the worst tactics I've seen them employ is the way they'll manipulate and treat drivers to try to wring as much as possible out of these drivers. And they'll bully them and intimidate them. If the guy wants to go home or wants some time off or if he doesn't feel well. And the underlying message with all this bullying is that, well, you know, if you can't do this for us, maybe you're not going to work out here and maybe we're going to have to let you go. And it's just, you know, it's an intimidation factor that they work into the driver's mind through the dispatch team. And it is so bad in some cases that it starts to eat at the psyche of these truck drivers and they feel worthless and don't feel like they belong or they're not doing well enough. And it's cruel and unintentional, but that's what's happening. And it's crazy to watch how these big carriers will try to manipulate drivers' lives, and it's a crime. Now, truck drivers know two things for certain these days. Number one is that because these big corporate carriers are investing in autonomous truck technology, that the big corporate carriers intend to replace truck drivers as soon as they possibly can with these autonomous trucks. And the second thing we know for sure is that happily, the technology of these autonomous trucks is nowhere near being able to replace its truck drivers. But big corporate trucking does not want you to know that and realize that. Big corporate trucking wants to work their truck drivers like robots until the real robots can take over. And living like a robot is no way for a human truck driver to live. At the latest recruitment and retention conference that these big corporate carriers held this year, they were all bemoaning the fact that not only do drivers want to seem to have more money, they want more time off as well. And they're distressed about this. But you know, if they think about it, these are truck drivers, and these guys are the hardest worked, most underpaid group in North America. Who can blame them for wanting more money and more time off? They've been worked like dogs for years. But you know what? In spite of their moaning, it's happening. And in the last 2 years, the average truck driver salary has gone from $47,000 to now over $70,000. And it's because drivers are starting to stand their ground. Drivers want more money, they want more time off, and by God, they're starting to get it. So drivers, stand your ground. It's worth it. Nobody wants to not be successful. Work to live, not live to work. You've got to have a standard of living that you enjoy and that is profitable for you, not like being a member of the slave trade. Got a quick story for you. Many years ago, when I was an owner-operator and pulling a company trailer, I'd done a couple of rounds out of Toronto down into California and back. I'd done 2 rounds back to back pretty much because you had to make hay while the sun shines. The loads were there, things were going good, we were busy. I got into Toronto, and the dispatcher, Dean, a good guy, says to me, you know what, I know you're tired, but if you do this quickie load, a drop and hook into Montreal, we think there's going to be a trailer in Montreal loaded with beer out of Molson's that you can just hook onto, go back home, take a few days off, and then head back to California with that. I thought, sounds great to me. Drop and hook, bang, bang, on my way home. So I took the load into Montreal, dropped it in Montreal at Molson's there. They got on the phone and the dispatcher said, well, there's been a change of plans. The California load didn't materialize, but we're going to have you hook on the one going to Newark, New Jersey. And Newark, New Jersey, you had to be careful as an owner-operator because they could give you loads that were very, very time-consuming, but not a whole lot of money involved because there weren't a whole lot of miles involved. So I said, no, you know what? I've been out long enough. I'm not turned on by this New Jersey load. No, I'm going to pass on that. And back then, there was no forced dispatch for owner-operators. And the dispatcher, this wasn't Dean. He passed me to another guy. And this guy started to get mad. He said, no, well, you know, you're there, you're available, you're empty, you're going to take this load. And I said, well, I'm sorry, but no, I'm not. I'm not. I've been out for weeks and I need some time home. I'm going home. He says, no, you're going to do this load. And that's the end of that. And I said, no, I'm not going to do this load. And you can find somebody else. And I hung up on him. And I thought, well, that'll be the end of that. I thought, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to go home. So I bobtailed home out of Montreal, almost 400 miles, but back then the truck, I was just pulling the tractor and no trailer behind me, so I was getting about 12 miles to the gallon. Just bobtailing didn't kill me. The fuel was cheaper back then. Bobtailed home, sat home for a few days, and then called up the dispatch, figuring I'd lost my job, you know, because I'd refused this load. So I got Dean on the phone, the guy that I liked, the guy that I worked for. I said, well, am I out of a job? He kind of chuckles and says, no, come on in, we got something for you. And that was the end of that. And I ended up making more money because I stood my ground. I didn't get stuck in New Jersey for a week. I got it a few days at home and headed back out to California, and that's where the money was. It pays to stand your ground. That's how you get ahead in trucking. Stay safe, keep the rubber side down, stand your ground, and we'll see you on the back haul.